Welcome, David Nesenoff, to From the Inside Out podcast. We'd like to thank the Altia Hotel for hosting us here today and allowing us to use their beautiful hotel to record this meaningful episode. And we're very honored to have you sitting with us. Your career spans many roles, including speaker, rabbi, publisher, journalist, author, musician, and filmmaker. So with your extensive list of accomplishments, Eda and I weren't sure where to start and where we should start in your remarkable story. And we decided we'd start at the time when you became the guy behind the camera. You were quoted as such. For our listeners who don't know your backstory, can you share how you earned this title?
Sure. First of all, pleasure to be here. Very nice to meet you both and be
Likewise.
here. I have on my wall a picture of me on the front cover of Ahyin magazine, like this, or something like this. I think it is. And it says on the cover, it says, "I'm the guy." So I always thought it was kind of funny. I'm the guy. So who's that guy, and why am I'm the guy at that time? It was because I'm known for outing the anti-Semite Helen Thomas at the Whitehouse. She was in the Whitehouse for 60 years. And she was there since Eisenhower, and I always joke. I said, I think she dated Lincoln's younger brother. She was there many years, and I happened to be there for Jewish Heritage Day, and I had a camera, and I was there with my son, and it's a whole story I tell about how we got there. But I went up to her and I asked her a simple question about, any comments on Israel. I was going to ask everybody that day any comments on Israel, just to kind of put together a collection of nice things about Israel. Oh, the falafel, oh, Masada, oh, the kotel, oh, all these nice things. And then post it and try to help Israel. That was my new career, to help Israel.
And which year was this?
This was a good question, 2010, I guess, a number of years ago. And she looked at the camera and she said, tell him to get the hell out of Palestine. And I said, ooh. And I remember I was on every television station in the world. I was on Fox, on the couch on Fox. And they said to me, Rabbi, when you said ooh, what were you thinking? And I remember I said to them, I was thinking ooh.
Right.
So it's an ooh. And I actually said it was the shofar inside of me blasting. Ooh, 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 ooh. Because this person was tearing Eretz Yisrael, land of Israel, away from me. So what happened is we posted. What happened was I said to her, any better comments on Israel? And she said, tell him to go home. So I said, the question I asked, which changed my life, is where is home? And she said, Germany and Poland. The Jews should go back to Germany and Poland. So I eventually posted it, and she was thrown out of the White House after 60 years. And it was really the moment which today we see very clearly, but at that time, people were able to say, I'm anti-Israel, but I love the Jews. I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm just anti-Israel. And we kind of believed it. But then she said, tell him to get the H out of Israel and go back to Germany. Then we realized she didn't say, go back to Tel Aviv, go back to Herzliya, Netanya. She said, from the river to the sea, yeah. Which is clear. And that was really a watershed moment in anti-Semitism where we heard, the most famous journalist, she was the dean of the Washington Press Corps, the most famous journalist in the world, say Jews should leave Israel and go back to Germany, where the final solution started. Right. So and that caused me to be in the forefront of this conversation of anti-Semitism in Israel, and it became a Rebbe story. So yes. That was my first big Rebbe story.
Can you share that story?
Everybody called me. I was in the news. I mean, I received thousands and thousands of requests from press. I received over 20,000 hate mails and death threats. It was a crazy time. And Ari Fleischer, who was the former President Bush's press secretary at the time, called me up and said, Yasher Koach David, good job, but you're going to have to know how to handle the press. And here's this guy, Ari Fleischer. So I said, okay, how do I handle him? He said, you have to have a message. Make sure you have a message when you go before the press. So I said, Ari, what's my message? He said, David, you have to, figure that out, but make sure you have a message. Otherwise, the press will make up their message. So my son came home from school. My son's the one who managed all this stuff, got me into the White House. So I said to him, Ari Fleischer called, I told my son. And my son said, I know, I told him to call you. So he's quite a kid. So,
he's a good manager.
Oh yeah, he's something else. So he said, I said, we need a message. What's our message? And my son said, we need to ask someone smarter than us for a message. So he said, you're on the front page of everything today. You're the guy. So he says, who do you want to talk to for advice on what our message should be? And I thought about it, and I said, it's a story about the Holocaust, about anti-Semitism in Washington, all this. So I said, Elie Wiesel. I want to talk to Elie Wiesel. Bring me Elie Wiesel. Like he leaves the room. Seconds later, he comes in with the phone. Here's Elie Wiesel. I get on the phone with Elie Wiesel and talking to him. He's very kind. Also, Yashakov, Rabbi Nesenoff. And he said, there is evil in the world. And then I said, what's my message? I figured here's a man. He wrote Night. He wrote the Pulitzer Prize, Nobel laureate. He knows how to write and put words together. And he said, I read in the paper that you pray with Chabad. And we had just started praying with Chabad. And I was a conservative rabbi who was now praying with Chabad. And he, at the time, and he said, why don't you find out what the Rebbe would have wanted you to say? Elie Wiesel is telling me to find out what the Rebbe would have wanted me to say. I show up at my Chabad house the next morning, Rabbi Chaim Grossbaum in Stony Brook, Long Island. Of course, now I have like an entourage, guys carrying my tallis bag, my tefillin bag. Wrap me up, I'll say the bracha later. It's like my whole life has changed, It's a crazy time. And I said to him, Elie Wiesel said I should find out what the Rebbe wants me to say on television. Like any other person in the world would go, that's nice, But a shliach of the Rebbe, an emissary of the Rebbe says, let's find out. And we went and he talked. He made a phone call to Rabbi Avram Shem Tov, who really gave the message to me of the Rebbe. And the strong message really was that if you have a friend and your friend goes away for a year, still your friend? Sure. 4 years, you go away, someone goes away, yeah, still my friend. Maybe after 50 years, you don't see that person. Is it still your friend? Forget about Facebook.
Right.
Is it still your friend?
Right.
No, it's somebody I used to know. But if you have a child, and your child you don't see for a year, still your child, of course. 5 years, still your child. Chas v'shalom chalil v'chas, God forbid, I don't know the circumstances, a person doesn't see their child for 50 years. Is that still your child? Of course. And the message of the Rebbe is, we are not the friends of Israel. We are B'nai Yisrael. We are the children of Israel. And that relationship is forever. And what that lady at the White House and what all these anti-Semites don't understand, the relationship between the children of Israel, the God of Israel, the people of Israel, is forever, like a parent and a child. And that message I gave throughout the world. I gave it on CNN. I gave it every place I went. I gave that message, and it rang so true because when the Rebbe says something, it's very succinct and it makes so much sense.
And it rings true today.
And today, for sure, they should understand, this is the only thing they should understand, is that we are B'nai Yisrael. We're children of Israel, and a child is forever.
Right. I want to go back to the moment where you said, where is home? Because often we look back at our experiences, and in the heat of the moment, it's very hard to know the right thing to say. And sometimes we'll look back and say, oh, I would have said this and I should have said that. But it sounds like you said exactly what needed to be said. Do you look back on that moment and think about how you maybe would have said something different? In hindsight, right? Is that exactly what you would have done if you had more time to think?
I think it was better than if I have time to think. Sometimes you can think. It's like, let me think about this. What should I do in this circumstance? I would have done the wrong thing.
That was your neshama talking.
There was a piece of me that was, first of all, saying, oh, why can't I just go someplace without getting in an argument? It's like, here, I interviewed this woman. I didn't really know much about her. They said I did it on purpose. I gotcha'd her, whatever. I didn't know. You could have told me she was Jewish and from Israel. I didn't know really much about her.
Right.
I was complete ignorance. But I remember I thought, you know what? I'm at the White House. I'm a journalist for the day. I had a press pass for the day. Let me be a journalist. And I decided, instead of arguing, let me ask the question. Let me go and ask, well, where should they go? Where is home? Just play it out that way. And it came out. She was, it just came out. And she, for whatever reason, she said it. Maybe she thought I was a nobody. Maybe she thought my camera was very small. Maybe she thought, whatever she thought. And it was just, and we talk about it, I talk about all the time, Hashgacha Pratis, divine providence.
Right.
Whatever reason, this was where I was supposed to be at that moment. And I think it was the perfect conversation back and forth that took place that made her sink herself and made it become a very, big plus for Israel and a very big understanding of anti-Semitism. Yeah.
Right. It's so remarkable that you just said exactly what needed to be said. It is very Hashgacha Pratis and divine and beautiful. And I want to go back a little bit,
please,
because there's always the backstory, and so often there's a great childhood story or where it started. So can you take us back and as far back as you
people always want to say, where did it start?
Where did it start?
I'll tell you, I'm a son of Avraham Avinu, of Abraham.
Okay,
they say,
far
how
back.
did you go
All
from
right,
conservative to Chabad? Yeah, you're starting it at the wrong spot. So, and then I'm a Levi, I'm a Levite from Moshe Rabbeinu, from Moses.
Okay.
So we'll go there.
Okay.
My father always said, he says, I don't know the whole ancestry, but there was a couple of generations in Russia, and then there was Moses. So we don't have to go on ancestry.com. We kind of know.
Right.
So I'm a Levite. And I'm named David because my great-grandmother was named Devosya, and she is buried in a place called Babi Yar with over 100,000 Jews who were killed and slaughtered.
Wow.
And I think that has always been in my atzmais, my very essence, my bones. But what happens is, and we were Gera Hasidim in Poland. We were Gera, my family would, but when they came to America, like many families, they dissipated their Yiddishkeit, their Judaism changed, we weren't. I always wonder, like in the 5 towns, I know a lot of from people who came from families and stayed from, or the Hasidim came. How come there were certain families like mine that they were, from these backgrounds, but then somehow in America, they had to keep the store open on Shabbos, and things changed. And for whatever reason, I don't fault them. We were slaughtered and massacred, and this is what happened to our people. But this is somehow the very pieces that did remain, they were strong enough to keep our neshama going, our soul going. For instance, my mother, Aleh Shalom, my mother who just passed away, she lit Shabbos candles and made a Shabbos every week. Okay, and had a Shabbos table. Maybe there were certain mitzvahs that weren't there. Maybe certain things weren't observed. Maybe some whatever. But Shabbos candles every Friday night was there, and it's I actually I dedicated the book to her.
Oh, that's so special.
And I read her every chapter, and then she passed right at the time. I
Did
showed
she
the book.
know the book was coming out?
She knew the book was coming out. I even showed her the dedication to her. I'm not sure at that point, because she really just passed at the time the book came out, but she knew every story in it. But I wanted her to know that it was her Shabbos candles that did it. It did. Whether someone's doing all the mitzvahs and everything, don't worry. If you're out there and just light those Shabbos candles, you don't know. Your children want to discuss with you Judaism or this or that. Don't discuss. Just light the Shabbos candles. They'll bring up the topic. What are you doing? Why are you lighting that? Oh, you want to talk Yiddishkeit? You want to talk, that. And my grandfather who came over and wasn't necessarily what we call a frum person, he taught me how to say Kiddush. For Friday night wine, and those things,
Stayed with you.
Stay with it. And then when I went to the conservative school, synagogue at the time, there was a cantor, Felix Berger, Olav Shalom, who died very young. But he was a person, he was a frum man who made a very big impression on me in his life. And just he stood there smiling when he came into Hebrew school and greeted you. It was a pure soul. So people can make an impression on who you are and how you're formed.
Right.
Just even these small moments.
These small moments. Even when I was at 14, I wanted to go to Israel on a program alone at 14. And everyone said, why don't you wait till later? Why don't you wait till you get older? 14, you're going to go away for a year. And my father wasn't particularly what one would call, again, said to me, your Bubba and your Zayda, they always said, we're going to go to Israel, we're going to go to, and they passed away, never went. I'm not going to tell my son at 14 not to go. If you can go, go.
So you went.
And I went for the year. I went for a year to Israel,
Wow.
to a place. And it wasn't necessarily a from place. It
Right.
was an agricultural school
Yeah.
for American program. But because I was away, so to speak, and I was able to start being on my own and choosing and picking, I became kosher at that time. They had a shul there that was dilapidated. I fixed it up and made services every week. So I was able to become on my own, religious. And they talk about Baal Teshuvos that when you have to fight for it and put it on your own, you really grasp onto it. It becomes very, very precious. The first set of tablets that Moshe got, he kind of threw away. When they made him write them up himself, he held on to them. So we have a good lesson to learn from Baalei Tshuva. But that's I think where it came from. And then I would, my family now had a sukkah, and I wanted to build a sukkah, and those types of things, came about.
And then you became a conservative rabbi.
Then I went to Yeshiva University actually went to the conservative movement. I graduated early. I wanted to learn some Yiddishkeit. And they said, come back next year. We don't do a half year. So I called up Yeshiva University, which Rabbi Barris, a Lubavitcher, a Chabad rabbi in Long Island, who influenced me, I mentioned in the book, told me about Yeshiva University. So I went there. And then I did very well there, so I stayed. Why break a good thing? And I stayed, but I kept going every weekend back to Long Island to the conservative synagogue and built up their junior congregation. And I had hundreds of kids coming. I mean, it was a real, it was an amazing thing.
What did you study at Yeshiva University? Or what did you...
My background was, I studied, there's certainly a Jewish program they have. The Yeshiva University, you study Jewish program from like early morning till 2 in the afternoon, and then colleges in the afternoon. And then all of a sudden, and then I look at people going to these other colleges where like, I took a class today, and Wednesday I have another class. I was like, what? So I studied psychology and speech and drama.
Wow.
So I figured it makes a good rabbi or something. I'm not sure what it makes. So that was my background. But I always knew that, I kept going to this, I was brought up by conservative synagogue, and so I became a conservative rabbi and practiced that for, many years, in different congregations. And eventually actually left it the week before I met Helen Thomas at the Whitehouse.
Wow.
If I did not leave it, I wouldn't have been there for that moment.
Why did you leave it?
I mean, there was always a tenuous situation where, look, the conservative movement, reform movement. I think a lot of Chabad people who attend Chabad are conservative and reform Jews. They're looking for authenticity.
Right.
They're looking for they want to, their loved one dies and they go to the rabbi to say Kaddish with the rabbi who doesn't believe in God. They don't want that.
So what made you start going to Chabad?
What made me start going to Chabad, I always, it's different stories, but I always say how, a Chabad rabbi approached me and said, do you like cake? And I said, I like cake. And so now I have 1,000 pieces of cake from the 1,000 congregations. But I think all along I was never one of those, conservative rabbis or whatever that thought, everyone should be conservative. I think one of the problems with the conservative movement is it's all about being a conservative Jew. Whereas Chabad, for instance, to their great merit, it's not about being a Chabad, it's about being a Jew. Right. In fact, they take their name off of most of the things. The JLI retreat. They don't call it friendship circle. It's not about the movement of Chabad. Right. It's about being a Jew, taking on mitzvot. So I think that they were very focused on we have to do this for the movement, and the movement, it's like a little organization, it's an organization like the Lions Club or some kind of fraternity organization. Right. When you got the real meat and potatoes here, why not go on to that? And I was always a fan of, even if I wasn't as religious as that Orthodox or Chabad rabbi, I was very happy there were Orthodox and Chabad and Hasidic Jews. That there were people observing it to that level. Not everybody should come to our level. Right. Okay. And I encouraged. I remember I brought Rabbi Tuvia Teldin from Long Island into my conservative synagogue to do a Motzei Shabbos program and everything. People were like, what are you doing? Well, he looks Jewish. What are we talking about? Well, why wouldn't we do that? I didn't understand that we're not supposed to, do that. So I think ultimately I knew that this is where I was supposed to be in my children. And at one point my son was in public school and we were very liberal and there wasn't much going on in our Yiddishkeit. And I'm saying to myself, what's happened to us? What's going on here? And my son comes home from high school, public school, and says, they're having a Jewish club. They're going to serve pizza on Tuesdays. Should I go to it? I'm like, yes, you should go to that. Like, I'm down to kosher pizza on Tuesdays. This is what my whole religion's down to. Okay, what happened to us? And there was a lovely young man, Aryeh Smith, from the Five Towns, who would travel all the way out to Stony Brook. And he makarev, and we don't like the term, he educated my son. And my son became more and more he was met with some anti-Semitism in the public school, but he started wearing yarmulke and tzitzis to fight it, which I always say, that, how do you fight it? The Iron Dome in Israel, it's called the Iron Dome.
Right.
Okay, it's Kippat Barzel. Okay, it's kippah. It's a kippah. It's a yarmulke. It's an iron yarmulke protecting Israel. We should never forget that. There's a reason they use that.
Right.
So the iron yarmulke isn't something that makes it so anti-Semites hurt us. It's a way that keeps them away from us. It shows we're serious about it.
Right.
And he put his yarmulke on tzitzis in public school, and everyone stopped. It was, woo, this guy's for real.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it was
amazing.
it was incredible. So he then got more. We would go to Chabad. Even when I was a conservative rabbi, I would attend Chabad. I wanted to go to Minyan, and my Chabad and my conservative board didn't like it. There was, and they tried to figure out, what's this Chabad about? Why is everyone going to Chabad?
Right.
I was on the inside hearing this,
Yeah.
and they came up with reasons,
Right.
Oh, they don't charge anything.
Right.
And then the other half of the room said they know how to get your money. So I'm like, well, which is it? Which is it? And it's neither of those.
Right.
It's neither of those. There's something when I at my kiddushes at my conservative synagogue, after the service, it would just be this faction and this faction and this faction. And now I go to Chabad and someone would come up to me and say, the Rebbitzins chillun's delicious, isn't it? I'm like, yeah. They said, oh, last week she did it vegetarian. It was even more delicious, believe it or not. And I'm like, where are these people from? Like, where's the factions? It was like just someplace to go away from the world, to go spend a Shabbos with people who were really doing it, and they weren't necessarily it's Chabad. They were all coming together and enjoying. And it was really, something special. I think that's what it brought us more and more. And Rabbi Chaim Grossbaum, I have to say, and his wife Rivkah, really, like every shliach, they have people that they really inspire. And my daughter said, I want to grow up and just be like Rivkah Grossbaum. And people said, aren't you jealous? That she wants to be like them.
Right.
And I said, and I wrote in the book, I said, I want to be like Rivkah Grossbaum. And I told Rabbi Grossman that recently, and he said to me, I want to be like Rivkah Grossbaum.
That's so sweet.
And when I was by Rabbi
We want to meet Rivkah Grossbaum.
Yeah.
Oh, you have to make sure she's here.
Right.
You
Well, I have to
have
thank them for sending me your
Make a
books.
note. You make a note.
Yeah.
Rabbi Isser Silverman, I was by him this past Shabbos speaking, and it would happen to be his birthday, a big milestone birthday, and people from his congregation got up during the Kiddush to say a few words, and it was remarkable. He's a very modest man. I don't think he appreciated everyone saying nice things about him, but it was remarkable how their lives were changed. Their lives were changed. You don't say that about just anybody. And they really, one person specifically said, it's not because what you taught us, it's what you and your wife live. We see how people's lives can be, and we wanted to have that life.
It's
and
by example.
By example, but it's not like by example just when you're, it's an authenticity.
Right.
Right.
The example I give in my book actually is,
Which we want to talk about.
yeah, which I'll mention a story from
Okay.
it. I was at Tufts University. Now, I've spoken for places. I was in Buenos Aires and spoke for 4,000 people in once. Tufts University, it was the smallest group. It was a Shabbos table. It was very peaceful. By the back, Rabbi and Mrs. Backman. It was very nice. And there was a small group of Jewish students there. And it was very nice and everything else. And the next day, I spoke again, and then for a small group. And then they said, you want to go for a Shabbos shluff? You want to rest in the afternoon? You have no more obligations. I said, no, I always like hanging out with the kids and whatever. And so I took a few of their kids, maybe 4 of them, for a walk on the campus.
I read that story. You
Yeah,
had a
with-
little trick with the kids.
I always show my thumb trick with the kids. I take my thumb off, and they all kids do the thumb trick. But I went for a walk with them on campus, and I joke in the book that now it was a machaya for the parents. It was like a second honeymoon because they only had 12 children at home. So I don't know. So I went with the kids, and the boys ran ahead. The 2 girls walked next to me, and we're walking through the campus, and we looked into the Student Life Center, and we saw some of the kids who, students who we saw the night before in the Friday night table. They're now on their computer on Shabbos, doing their work and everything. It's a very competitive school. And we walk by, and we're looking, and we see them. We walk by, and one of the little girls gives my jacket a tug, and I look down, and she says, she was concerned that I wouldn't understand why they were working on Shabbos. She said, don't worry. They don't know about Muktzah and Shabbos and the laws yet, but don't worry. They'll learn.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, I finally met the Rebbe. That is Chabad. Non-judgmental, authentic, okay? No judgment whatsoever. There's no, the Rebbe he was around in the 60s and 70s. God knows what approached him and came in front of him, right? A Jewish neshama was a Jewish neshama, was a soul. And that's what that little girl never met the Rebbe.
Right.
That little girl, but she grew up in an authentic house. When the doors are closed, her parents aren't saying, "Oh, those college students aren't really Jewish." No. They were saying, "Don't worry, they'll learn. They're Jewish." And that's what attracted me to Chabad ultimately, even if I didn't know. And that's why I think people go to Chabad, because it's the authenticity of Yiddishkeit. And that's what it might bring me to the title of the book.
Yes, I wanted to ask you about that. Well, first of all, it's also about the Rebbe met people where they were at, and he saw their potential, and that's what this little girl was doing too. Like, she saw those students for who they are, and she also saw their potential.
For sure, beautiful. Yeah.
And yes, so someone sent me a picture of this book and said, "You must read this book." I never met the Rebbe many times, and it really caught my eye, and Eda had told me about it as well. And I looked on Amazon. It wasn't on Amazon. I ran down Kingston Avenue to buy one, and then I bought a few.
And I want people to go to Kingston Avenue to buy it.
Yes.
Don't go to Amazon. Support the bookstores, the Jewish bookstores.
Yeah. I looked at the title. I was blessed to have met the Rebbe, but my children never met the Rebbe. And I bought a few copies, and then I hadn't even read the book yet, but I knew that I wanted to interview you because I wanted to ask you, this title, "I Never Met the Rebbe Many Times," told me that you felt you met the Rebbe, but you hadn't met the Rebbe. And I felt like this was a message that needed to be shared with today's generation.
Sure. Yeah. I am. First of all, I'm very big on you should have a good title.
Yes.
With a title like that, the pages can be empty.
We agree.
Yes.
But in some ways, also a title has to allow you, when you write any people that write, put a title. A lot of people do it afterwards. I need a focus on what's this book about, or what am I writing about each chapter. So it's good. But I never met the Rebbe many times. Basically, I went to Yeshiva University, and my first day of Yeshiva University, I sat in a Talmud class, with Rabbi Benjamin Blech, who actually had a relationship with the Rebbe. He's an Orthodox rabbi. And it was my first day of studying Gemara and Talmud. I never saw one. I never saw a page. And it was first thing I ever studied was Masechet Kedushin, the tractate on marriage. And it said, "Ha'ish mekadesh bo uveshlucho." A man can get married by himself or with an agent. Somebody can do it for him. And I was like blown away. I was like, what is this Talmud about? If I don't show up at my wedding, okay, I can have a buddy show up instead. I mean, that's what this Masechet, this tractate was saying. Yeah. This Talmud was saying. I was like confused by it.
That's in your introduction, right?
In my introduction, I mentioned it because it's about the title, which is that it's in this tractate, in this Talmud, it's saying that not that you send your buddy or somebody who's going to have power of attorney. It means that if you're going to have someone represent you, it has to be someone who has the midot, the measures, the very essence of who you are. That person can show up for a sacred event and represent you for that moment. And that's a shliach. It uses the word uveshlucho, shliach. And that's what a shliach is. It's not just somebody who, you're going to rep me. It's not a rep. Even though I never met the Rebbe, okay, because I met the shluchim, the emissaries, these reps, whatever we call them, they are indeed, all 5,000 of them, okay, and their spouses, are in essence the Rebbe. They really are exuding what the Rebbe represent, how he lived his life, and yes, I don't say they're exact. We strive for that. We try it. We don't always make the mark, but they're very close. Okay, so even though I never met the Rebbe, I met him many times through the emissaries of the Rebbe, the shluchim, because they are princes and princesses. They are amazing, and that's really what the book's about. I traveled to over 700, maybe 1,000 Chabad houses in the world. I had the opportunity to do that, and not many people have that opportunity. I spoke at those places. And I got to meet these shluchim, these emissaries, and each one, and you of course meet the people, the congregants, and they're all talking about their shliach. Oh, my shliach is very special. I don't have hard to tell them that there's 5,000 of these unbelievable, special, hand-picked people that this Rebbe sent out. And even though I never met the Rebbe, okay, when I meet Rabbi Zalman Bucket and Rabbi Ruvi Nu and Rabbi Moshe Denberg and all these shluchim. Okay, I got to meet the Rebbe. Okay, and I got to see the Rebbe's great qualities, and I even got to see the Rebbe's humor. Because Chabad is we're funny people. Okay, we're just like everybody else, but more so.
That's great. That's great. So you've been to, like you said, almost 1,000 Chabad houses. Is there any story in particular that stands out to you, or any? I mean, I would imagine you had many, but
You have amazing stories.
Yeah.
in there.
I tell you, when people ask what's the most, I haven't written the book, what's the most interesting or what's the most memorable or whatever,
Right.
and there's so many things that took place. But I actually, and I've been to South America. I was in Curitiba and Rio and Sao Paulo, and then I went to Buenos Aires, and I was in Uruguay, but I mentioned Paraguay. Oddly enough. And it wasn't the biggest Chabad house, it was the smallest one. Paraguay's a very poor country. Rabbi Fagelstock, the rabbi there, picked me up and took me around. I joked in the book how, we went through some red lights, and he said, they're just suggestions. He's a funny guy, whatever. But it was very nice and everything. But when we went back to his Chabad house, his wife at the time, Baruch Hashem, she's fine and everything, but at the time maybe she was expecting, or maybe she was ill that week. I was there a few days, so I didn't see her. I knew she was in the bedroom. But her daughter, Chana, she was all of 12 years old, I think, could have been 11 or 12, and she was taking care of the children, and she was setting up for the event, and she was cooking. And there, if you want to have Pas Yisrael, bread made by a Jew, you're the Jew.
Right,
Okay,
right.
there's
She
no
made the bread.
she there was a Hebrew school, and her mother she ran the Hebrew school, and she taught classes, and she set up, and she did all of this. And even when I spoke at the event, she had such unbelievable poignant questions, and carried herself in such a way, all with children in tow and taking care of them and cleaning up. And I was like, wow, made such an impression that while we have in American society, our teenagers who are, take me to the mall, or I want this, or I'm going to sit on the phone, or whatever. Here's this young lady, this young lady, a shlucha in her own right, the daughter of a shlucha, of an emissary of the Rebbe, and she's leading a different life. She's not slave labor. Believe me, she was so proud of the things she got to do, that I dedicated that chapter to all of the children of shluchim. All of them, because they're leading, and they're not all living in Crown Heights. They're in places where there aren't Jews around and whatever. But
many of them are homeschooled.
Homeschooled. They have the Nigri homeschooling on their computer, but they're light years ahead of the American society teenagers and children. They're looking after the next one. They're looking after each other. They know how to clean up after their space. They set the table. There's a different understanding, and that young lady, Chana of Paraguay, and I think it's the name of the chapter, represented to me of all the places that it hit me that I'm running around talking to all the shluchim, that it hit me that there are children that come along with these shluchim, and that. Even more so than I never met the Rebbe many times. I met the children of the Rebbe, many times, and that's what Chana Paraguay is.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah.
For those, we have many listeners on our podcast, and for those who have not visited a shliach or a Chabad house, what would you say is the mission of a shliach and a Chabad house? What was the underlying deep feeling for you?
Yeah,
the mission was?
I think they're not about. It's not about a synagogue for dues. It's not about getting you to do more mitzvahs, although, ultimately that does enhance your life. It's more about the thing that is missing in people's lives, and that is purpose. I actually, the way I make a living is I have drug rehabs, okay? And I've learned that it's not about drugs and alcohol. That's the people's problem, okay? It's about a lack of purpose. And people who don't have drug and alcohol problems also have this problem. There's a lack of purpose in people's lives. They don't, I get up in the morning, what am I doing? One day falls into the next day, a week falls into the next week. I don't know where, it just goes on and on. And here people are looking for some kind of purpose and meaning, and they just want something real. They want real. Everything's so fake. Everything's fake. Any commercial on everything's fake. The reality shows are fake. Okay, there was a Judge Judy. We have people go in front of the judge on television. Okay, I do filming of stuff also. I'm in the film business a little, and I was talking to an actor, and I said, I saw you on Judge Judy. I said, were you suing somebody? He goes, no, it was an acting role.
Oh my gosh!
So I'm like, even the reality shows of judges and they're all fake, and people know this. People are living in a fake world. And I think that. People, if you want something real, you really want to get real, study a little Tanya. But you want real, go into a Chabad house, and there's real. And what changed it for me also was that, when I used to pray, I would pray for like peace on earth, health for everybody, And Chabad said, you can pray for the upcoming contract you're doing. You can pray for that deal you want to make. You can pray for the house you want. You can pray for gashmias, for material things. It shows more faith when you say, I'm going to pray that I'm going to get that parking spot.
Right.
That takes more faith than, I believe peace on earth. God's going to bring peace on earth. No, I'm praying that I can get that house that we really want that was perfect for our family. Pray for that.
And that's part of the mission, is revealing the light in the physical world.
It's the physical world that takes us to the spiritual. A candle, we light candles. What was it? It's a physical wax, has a physical wick, and it's the only thing that really represents physical going into spiritual. Physical going into spiritual. And that's what we're supposed to. We're not supposed to go into spiritual. I want to be spiritual. I tell people, I'm a spiritual Jew. I don't need the thing. I said, we're just spiritual? Let's go bowling right now. Oh no, you need the lanes, you need the bowling ball, you need the silly shoes. Then you can go bowling. Then you could do the concept of bowling. Okay, I can't do the concept of life or Shabbos or whatever it is without doing the physical thing. I need the physical thing.
So how would you define spiritual?
Spiritual is, I guess, what comes out of doing these physical things.
Right.
That brings me to a certain feeling.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier I just lost my mother, and I have to tell you, I could not have done it without the physical. Okay? You need to tear. You need to say that Kaddish. That Kaddish is so brilliant. Okay, that they give me words. They could have said, say the Shema. Say the Shema, Hero of Israel, Lord. I could say that at home. No, I'm going to give you words that require a minyan. Okay, there's a trick. I'm tricking you. I'm going to give you words of. Now I have to be around people. And I'm going to be around people who also just had a loss. And now we're going to become brothers together, and we become friends and everything else. And that brings us to this level of more spirituality, doing these physical things to do.
I mean, the candle that you mentioned, you must, in order for the flame to come, you have to have that oil. And the oil represents the mitzvah.
Yeah, look, for a man, we put on tefillin. I've got to strap these boxes on, okay, and put these things on. I have to wrap myself in Torah. Okay, I don't even, you can't even see what's inside. I don't see what's inside the boxes. It doesn't matter what's inside, okay? What's inside? I don't see my stomach and my lungs and everything else. I'm wrapped, it's inside, and I know it's in there, and it keeps me alive. So I wrap myself in these boxes, so that I don't even have to study Torah at that point. I just wrap myself in it. And people say, well, explain tefillin to me. I said, well, just put it on, and then you explain it to me. Okay, it is amazing. The Rebbe was brilliant. Go out there and put tefillin on Jews. He didn't say, go out there and teach the Jews Bereshit and Shmod, put tefillin on them. Because the Rebbe didn't believe in that word makarev. The Rebbe didn't believe in the word of bringing Jews closer. The Rebbe said, the Jew has everything in him and her already. Okay, we just want to bring it out so they can see it. So put tefillin on, and it starts to exude out, because now you're a walking Torah. Okay, and you feel Jewish, and you know you're Jewish.
Same with the lighting of the candles. It's like switching on a light. You're really just seeing what's already there.
Yeah, and it's not the whole. It's funny that's a little tiny flame. It's not. Well, it's not the biggest flame. Why don't you turn on the lights and No, we light a little light, and it brings forth a lot, and that's about us. But it is. I think that the physical brings. People say, what's a mitzvah? A mitzvah. Oh, we want to bring ourselves closer to the heavens. Okay, and it's not about that. It's about doing mitzvahs here so that we have a vessel that God can come to us here. I'm involved with mikvahs. We my son and I, thank God, through our business, and we've decided to get into the tzedakah business, and we build mikvahs. Okay, we've been building a lot of mikvahs, and they asked me to speak at one of the mikvahs, the Nesenoff mikvah in Springfield, Illinois, and I said. I said, the mikveh is emblematic. It is the symbol of what a mitzvah is. You physically build this vessel, and I remember them sending me videos of them building it. The machine going in, and the tiling, and all the different things, and they were building this mikveh, and then they finally sent me a little tiny video of the first drops of water coming into the mikveh. And I said, That's that we built the vessel, and that was God participating in the mitzvah. So that's all mitzvahs. Okay, that we do it here, so that God says, "Oh, look at this house. It has Shabbos candles. It's got a challah going on. Someone's making kiddush. The kids are singing. They're all tznius. They're modest. They're doing all these things. I'm going to come and rest here." And it's an easier job actually than trying to grab heaven.
Right. Right. Wow. So when you go around to different Chabad houses and do speaking engagements, what's the main message that you want to convey, and what do you normally speak about?
Right. Sure. Recently, of course, and recently, in the last 100 years, so last 1,000 years, there's a lot of anti-Jewish, anti-Semitism going on. And just as much as I used to tell my Helen Thomas story of the White House, and ultimately there should be a poil, an uvachein, a call to action at the end of the story. Now there's even more so. People are very concerned with anti-Jewish and anti-Semitism. What are we supposed to do? There's people fighting Israel now from all sides. How do we do it? So my message is really, what can we do here in Florida, in Montana, in Los Angeles, in London? What can we do?
And what would you share with them?
Sure. Well, this quote-unquote terrible Holocaust that took place October 7th is different than the last Holocaust, because now we have Sahal, Israel Defense Forces, and we have a country. So we have a bit, but still we're not there. What can we do? I think the story I tell, because I'm always a storyteller, I'm not just going to answer a question. I tell a story of when I moved out of Long Island, and it was the contract said in the selling of the house that by midnight you had to be out of the house. Okay, so great. Most people, normal people, a week before they're out of the house, and that's it. 10 minutes to midnight. I'm for schlepping all the boxes and putting it on the truck. We got 5 minutes left, and so finally we come to the garage, and it's all done. Everything in the corner, there's an attaché case, but like a box one, a file one, like a pilot carries. And I remembered what it was. I knew what it was when I saw it. It was where the Siddurim, the prayer books, Shiva books were. When I used to go to a Shiva house, I would carry this with me with the chairs and bring it to them. And one day I must have come home and put it in the corner, and there it stayed. And so now at 5 minutes to midnight, I'm moving to Florida. I got to get rid of this box of prayer books, and I'm not going to leave them for the next Shiva books for the next person moving in. And I'm not going to put it on a truck. There was no room, whatever. And I said to my kids, there was a Reform synagogue down the block. I said to my teenage kids at the time, I said, just leave it, leave it in front of the door tomorrow. People used to bring me books all the time when I was a rabbi, these books that were decrepit, falling apart, and then they ask for a deduction and a receipt. And, so here I said, just give it to them. We don't need a deduction. Just leave it in front of the door. We'll find. The next morning, I'll get to your question. The next morning, if I remember, we were at Starbucks. I'm taking my daughter out to Starbucks, so she had no school. We were moving. And it was nice, father-daughter, she's a little kid, and we're having our vente, latte, mates, whatever it was, and she's so happy to be with her father, just the two of us. And a woman we knew from Chabad actually came in, and she said, "Oh, I heard you guys are moving." And I said, "Actually, today." She goes, "Oh, wow, you're moving today?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, you're getting out just in time." So I'm like, "What do you mean?" She said, "You didn't hear?" I said, "No." She said, "Well, they found a bomb at the Reform synagogue in front of the door last night. Someone put it there, So my daughter's like, "Oh no, it was the prayer book." My daughter's like, "Oh no, that was." I'm like, so we said goodbye to the lady, whatever. Yeah. And then my daughter looks and goes, "We have to tell." We're not telling anybody anything. Nobody's, So we get outside and we see the road is closed off. There are helicopters on top. There's police cars coming and going. And it's really taken seriously. Oh my God. And my daughter's like, Abba, you have to tell somebody about it. I'm like, "You're very young. You don't understand. Nobody will ever hear of this. We're not telling anybody." She goes, "No," she's like a good girl. And I'm like, So we drive the car as close as we can get. And the policeman knocked on the window and said, "Move it along." And I listened to my daughter, and I said, roll down the window. I said, "I have information regarding the bomb." Yeah. So he gets on the thing, gets me out of the car, brings me to the back of the shul, the Reform synagogue. And there were RVs lined up, military RVs, whatever. And some guy comes out, looks like he's the general of NATO, He comes over to me and says, "I understand you have information regarding the incendiary device." And I'm like, "Oh, God." And I look over in the front door of the synagogue there, my nebuch, my poor little box of Rebbe, and I'm looking, and I see going in for the kill a robot on wheels going in to get it, and I couldn't take it any longer. I ran over, and I opened it up, picked it up, and I said, "They're prayer books." And I was embarrassed. Everybody was relieved. I got a receipt for $200 for the deduction, and that was this. And I thought I would never tell that story. I forget, it's not something you want to tell everybody, especially on a podcast. Millions of people watch this. But I then heard something the Rebbe was talking about. The word vayigash means to approach. And it's a word, he said, that when it comes to military might and war, we approach, vayigash, we approach. But he said it's also the word we use when we approach in prayer. And he said, well, it's very odd that the same word we use to approach in prayer is the same word we use to approach in military. One is peaceful and one is aggressive. And the understanding is, when it comes to our prayers, we should take it very seriously, be precise, aim, fire, specific time. Don't just mumble it. Don't just not think about it. So getting back to your question, there is a physical war. Okay, but we have explosives in our hand also in our prayer books. There's a spiritual war that we have to fight. And we have to take it seriously. We light Shabbos candles, we have to light them at the exact time. Precise. Okay, when it comes to our prayers, we have to look at those prayers and say them precisely. We have to look at that prayer book like it is, like we're going to fire it. Okay, and we don't have to put on olive green uniforms and go into Gaza. Thank God. Okay, it's tragic. No one reports on how many young 20-year-olds are being killed every day. But we have to take it seriously on our end, and we have to fight that spiritual war with those prayers, because Israel has survived all these years, not just from IDF and not just from a slingshot many years ago. It's because of the holiness of the land and the holiness of the Jewish people who are praying for that land. And we have to fight that spiritual war. That is our job. Jews, take it seriously, even if you're not inclined to it, even if you weren't brought up by it. Do it now. That's your mission.
Wow.
Thank you for sharing that message.
Yeah.
And I also had read in an article that you were very emotional when on one of the recent trips when you went to Israel. Was that before October 7th?
Yeah, it was. But I had lived in Israel on and off a little here and there. I lived in the old city for a little while, and I developed a relationship with the Kotel, with the Kotel, the Western Wall. At 3 a.m, I would get to go. You can just walk out of the apartment and walk down there and sit there. And I remember seeing a guy cleaning out the messages that people put in. I remember I said to him, "How many times a year do you do that?" And he said to me, "The question is, how many times a day do we do that?"
Oh,
wow. There's such a powerful place people come to, and I just came. Sometimes we all feel wherever I am, I should be someplace else. Oh, I got to run here. I'm always like, I always feel. I got to be somewhere else. I'm not in the place. When I'm in Israel, when I'm into Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel, I could be sitting having a café afuch, some kind of latte or whatever it is in the corner of nowhere, and I'm where I'm supposed to be. There's such a feeling that the Jew has in this land. And I was once asked, it was actually by Jewish Broadcast Company, after the Helen Thomas thing, he asked me the classic question, are you a Jew, Israeli first or American first? Where's your allegiance? And I just on the spur answered something that I've thought about a lot, and that is that, I have two parents. I'm allowed to have two loves in my life. You come up
with great answers in the moment. We need to learn how to do that.
I could love the Grand Canyon, and I could love Masada.
Right.
I could be in the Whitehouse that day, and I could be at the Knesset, or I could be at the Kotel, and I'm allowed. And if I had three loves, I wish I would, but I only have two. Yeah. And I don't feel that way when I'm in Paris at the Eiffel Tower. It's pretty, it's nice. Okay, but I have two loves. I'm American. I was born here. I have very strong feelings, but I certainly, love my mother and my father. And I'm entitled to do that. And I think anybody that says you have to choose one or whatever just doesn't understand the word love. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
So that feeling you described in Israel when you're there, you feel like where you're meant to be. I want to talk about Hashgacha Pratit for a second. Hashgacha Pratis, which
divine
Yes.
providence.
So you mentioned that it seems to be a recurring theme in your story and in your book. For our listeners who don't know what Hashgacha Pratis is, could you tell us what it is and what it means to you?
Sure. I mean, the words are divine providence. Probably the worst translation we can. Divine, two words we never use. Right. but it really goes beyond that. It goes to the fact that where you are is where you're supposed to be, is where God wants you to be. The very famous Chabad story, I actually put it in the book, is about stuck. The stuck story. Some women go on a retreat to Detroit, and they get stuck there at the airport, and they call the Rebbe's office. We're stuck, and it was Shabbos or Pesach coming, Passover coming. We're stuck. And the secretary of the Rebbe says, hold on. And he gets back on the phone. He says, the Rebbe doesn't understand the word stuck. And the person then starts explaining. It means when you can't get somewhere. And he says, the Rebbe speaks like 10 languages. He knows what the word stuck means. He means a Jew is never stuck. Wherever a Jew is where a Jew should be. That's hashgacha pratis. That is divine pratis. If I'm here, this is where I'm supposed to be at this moment. Okay, I'm not stuck. And I given the story about the Lazaroffs in Texas, where they had lost a child. I told the whole story. And they actually developed this amazing Ashel house to house people who are with family while they're in the hospital. They experienced something terrible that no one should ever experience. But from that, they decided, we're not stuck. We experienced this. We have to do something. We learned something, that there are people who need help while they're going through a tragedy. So Y.Y. Jacobson, Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson, who's I'm a speaker. I love speaking. I'm not afraid to speak, but he's a great speaker, and he talks about the Joseph story, when Joseph finally reveals himself to his brothers, and his brothers are like, oh my God, we threw him in a pit, and now he's the viceroy of Egypt. And Y.Y. Jacobson says he paraphrased what Joseph said. He says I wasn't sold, I was sent. And that's hashgacha pratis. We live our lives as someone who is sold. He says, you don't ask a house, do you want to be sold? Wherever you are, that's where you were sent. There's a shliach, is a person who was sent. Wherever you are, that's where you're sent. Am I kvetching over what happened to me? Oh, woe's me. Or was it hashgacha pratis? Was it divine providence? I'm supposed to be here in this pit or in this tower or wherever I am. Okay, I'm either sold or sent. And when you figure out in life, every moment I was sold or sent, and you start to realize I was sent, you're going to have a different life from the people who think that their whole life is they were sold.
That's a good perspective.
Yeah.
I love that.
I love that analogy.
So, and thank you, Y.Y. Jacobson, for the sold and sent.
Yes, thank you, Rabbi Y.Y. He's got a lot of wisdom to share. Okay, so you were sent to all these different places around the world, and you met the Rebbe through these experiences. And what can you impart onto those who didn't get to go to all these Chabad houses around the world, the feeling that you have, this connection that you have to the Rebbe, that you feel like you met him? What would you share with someone else who has never met the Rebbe and hasn't had the opportunity to visit the places that you have visited?
Well, I first of all say that you can. There's what they joke, there's more Chabad houses than Coca-Cola now.
Right.
You can have that experience. You want to meet the Rebbe, you want to see what I'm talking about, this experience, just find a local Chabad house. There's plenty of them around. Now, one might feel, well, it's not really me. I'm not, this guy has, the Rebbe has a beard, and the rabbi there has a long beard, and they have a mechitza. They have this wall up. I can't sit with my husband and wife, and they sing things in Hebrew, and they're not all doing English, and they don't have guitars on Shabbos. All the reasons we can give that, that haven't worked for you in the past anyway. Okay, let's understand. They don't work. So go to the Chabad house. Just go any day
on your vacation, wherever you are.
Wherever you are, you go to it, and you could. It's funny. People they say the Rebbe was very into the concept that there's a Mashiach coming. There's going to be a Mashiach who's going to come, and he's going to pronounce there's peace in the world, and he's going to bring a whole new world, and he's going to travel throughout the world and be Mashiach. And I often think that the Rebbe believed in Mashiach so much that we think he established all these Chabad houses for all the Jewish communities. He really just wanted a place for Mashiach to get kosher food and a Shabbos when he's traveling. Okay, we benefit from it, right. But ultimately he just wanted the Mashiach to have a place to stay, right. Okay, and get kosher food. Right. Okay, but we can have the same experience that the Mashiach is going to have. We could stop by a Chabad house and go in and say hello and say I am a Jew, and he's not going to look at you they're going to look. The Rebbe looked at a Jew. I don't care if that Jew in the 60s had long hair with beads. I don't care if they had no hair. I don't care, whatever. There is no judgment. You want to go to a place that you're not judged, and just go in, and you will be seen as a Jew, not with a Jew with a checkbook, not with a Jew with a this or that. It is an amazing experience. he calls them soldiers. So, many times in a good sense, soldiers follow directives. We're not out there trying to figure out what to do. So I would say to someone, you want that feeling. Don't worry about my feeling. Okay, I led my whole life, and I have my feeling. Go to a Chabad house. Go there. Say hello to the rabbi. You don't have to go there all the time. Still go. No.
And the Rebbetzin.
And the Rebbetzin, of course, and the Rebbetzin for sure.
Yeah.
And it's always when the Rebbetzins all have their convention, and every Rebbetzin in the world goes to New York, and the rabbis are all left without the Rebbetzin. It is the craziest Shabbos on earth. Okay, there's like beer, cold cholent.
Yeah.
It's like you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a very funny Shabbos.
Yeah.
But when I was at the keynotes recently, the Rabbi Kotlarski, who was Refuah Shlema, Rabbi Kotlarski got up and said, there's two words of why we're all here and able to succeed. And I thought he was going to say the Rebbe, and he said the Shlucha, the rabbi's wives. And every rabbi, 5,000, got up on their chairs and started applauding and yelling and screaming.
And that's true.
And it's so true. It's so true. And in opposition to what the world thinks today, men and women are different. They have different roles. And I want to be who I am.
The Rebbe really empowered the women.
Yeah, and the women are. People look. That's the other thing. Oh, the women have rights and not rights, and it's this crazy world we're being fed. That go to the emes, to real truth of what the world is. You will see women who are empowered and running the show, and the men go off the show and put tefillin on. Yeah, and but I'm saying that there's a role. We have roles. We have roles to do, and they're not always going to be the same roles, and it's okay. It's okay. When any business, and everybody has the same role. I mean, it's a silly thing to think that everybody has the same role. Not one's better or worse. They all have roles. So I think that people should make their way to a Chabad house and taste it, see it. You'll never be judged. Doesn't matter what you're wearing, what you do. It's just really incredible.
Have you been to the Ohel?
The Ohel, yeah, with the resting place of the Rebbe. Many times I was just there this week. I was in New York. What people do at the Ohel is, they go, they sit down, they write a note about something, and then they bring it to the grave, as you know, and then they read it and rip it up and throw it on. Okay, that's the process. So what's going on there? Think about it. There's two parts. One is the part of the Rebbe. We're asking him to be the ambassador. Help me with something, whatever it is. Be my ambassador. But what's my part? My part is a very interesting phenomenon. How many people will actually sit down and spend the time in that room and write, page after page maybe, of my life, my problems, my wishes. Someone once told me, make sure you thank the Rebbe for his work also. I thank him also. Thank you, and not, we're not writing to God. It would be too presumptuous. We have a prayer book. That's the prayer. That's how we write there. But we can write to an ambassador, to a tzaddik a righteous person who can intervene for us. And we're fortunate to have one in the United States. In Israel, there are many graves of righteous people. But the very fact of sitting down and writing that out, okay, is beyond all psychology. To go ahead and spend a moment. What am I? Where am I at? What am I looking for? To put it in words. What is it I really want? What is the problem with the business that we're trying to fix? What is it that I have a child? What's the health issue that really I need fixed? And to put those there, and then to go and say some Psalms, the Heirloom, and then read it to the Rebbe, and there's a sea of everyone's words together. It's just incredible, to see them all like that. And it's an incredible place. People come from all over the world, 24 hours a day. I always run into people. Everybody runs into people they know. Sometimes after you write something, you're looking for a sign. I've had it many times. They have a video going of the Rebbe in the hallway. After you write something and you go in the hallway, and he says, this business meeting is the most important. I'm like, whoa, how did the Rebbe know my business? So it's an incredible place to go. We go so many different places. Why not, taste this as well?
The Rebbe used to go there himself. When someone would ask for bracha, he would say, ask your Al Hatzion, I will ask by my father-in-law for a bracha for you. And he would go, and my father-in-law, Rabbi Yehuda Krinsky, was the one who drove him thousands of times and would be by his side while he was at the Ohel or outside the Ohel. And now we're doing that same think today he's buried right next to his father-in-law, and many miracles there's so many stories of miracles that have happened from people writing what you have shared right now.
The story I have in my book is called A Grave Moment at Francis Lewis Boulevard. A very personal story, because I never met the Rebbe, and I was, if I might interject, I was by my father's bedside in a hospital, and they said tomorrow he's going to pass away. The next day, I was a rabbi. I had to do a funeral. I had to officiate at a funeral someplace, and I'm like, how can I be there when I should be with my father? I was with so many other people when their loved one passed away. I want to be by my father's side. But I knew I had to, these people were flying in for this funeral. I had to go. I figured I'll just rush over to wherever this cemetery is. I'll do the funeral, try to make it without showing I'm rushing, you know, and then get in the car and run back and hope my father will still be alive for that moment. I could be with him. So what happens, I go to this cemetery and I'm officiating, and I look over and I see all these people. I knew nothing about Chabad, I have to tell you. I was not involved with Chabad my whole life. And I see all these people gathered around, and I was, oh yeah, this is where that Rebbe is buried, right, like 20 feet away. This was, if you know, the fence. This was a grave right at the fence. So I said, this is where that Rebbe, oh, people go to, and as I'm officiating, I'm thinking this, like, oh, this is where people go and ask him for things, and oh, yeah. And I'm thinking, what am I doing? I should finish this off and run to the hospital. So I finished it off, and I thought, let me run inside here, cut the line a little, try to go inside, and maybe ask this Rebbe to do me a favor and let me be make it to my father and be there when he passes. That's my ask, okay? So I went in there and I did that, and then I rushed out of there, got to the hospital. My father was still alive. Family was there. They saw me show up, so they all took a break, and I was with him alone. And very shortly after he passed from this world, and I was with him. And even though I never met the Rebbe, I had my what they call yichidus. I had my private moment with the Rebbe, and he granted me my ask. And that was that was when I was at the. And since then, I've gone there many times, and we hear amazing stories, and sometimes it's revealed to us, sometimes it's not. To go to just the concept again of where we spend our time in our life,
and being accountable.
Yeah, we're gonna go to those who came before us, give them respect. And it's fun being a conservative rabbi and all the problems with boards and this and that. But people used to put down Chabad. Oh, they look at that, pray to this rabbi. And I'm like, Alavai, there should be a movement that people actually treat a rabbi with respect. I was all for it. Maybe that's what attracted to me. I said, you mean there's a movement where they are nice to their rabbi? So I thought that's pretty good. So that's, they had the weight of the world on him, this Rebbe. And in fact, the picture, I should mention it, of the book, I found this picture. Usually you see the Rebbe walking out of 770 carrying a bag of all the letters, and I came across this picture, and it just hit me. Somehow his hand was over here. Either it could be he was just adjusting his hat. Right. But to me, it was just this little piece here, just this little piece here of his thumb touching his head. This is a Rebbe who had the local and global world on him. Okay. And he's just a human being. How many people you have? You only have a certain amount of years in this world. What are you going to do with it? And what he did with it was he had it all here to take care of every individual, every prime minister, every president, and every little child, and every woman, man that came to him with whatever their tzuris was, whatever it is they wanted. It was right here. And I saw that picture. I said, wow, that's my Rebbe.
I was wondering why you chose that picture, but that I really like.
And it's usually not available. For some reason, they granted me the right to publish it. Wow. And I thank them for it. So.
Wow. Yes. So you've had the unique experience of having a wealth of experiences in your life. You also studied psychology. That stood out to me. I also did. And you've had an experience in journalism and public speaking, and with all the things that you've done. I'm sure you've taught so many people so many things with your wisdom and everything you've shared around the world. I just wonder what you learned in the process of having these experiences. Like maybe if you could share like 2 or 3 practical life lessons or things you do differently today because of your experience or things that you've learned.
Yeah, I think I'm reminded of praying from the Amud, from the stand at Rabbi Moshe Denberg's shul in Boca. I remember, I'm very proficient in davening. I'm going through the whole thing, and I'm singing and davening. And then it came to the last pages where it says the prayer for the day. And I was stunned. I wasn't saying anything because I frankly didn't remember what day it was. And then Rabbi Denberg got up, walked across the room, he came over to me and went, "It's Wednesday." Okay. And I went, "Oh, okay." I went on. And it hit me that Judaism is really about reminding you it's Wednesday. It's today we call it being in the moment. So what I've learned from the more I took on in Judaism, it wasn't just, oh, this is Passover, oh, this is the first of the month, we're going to pray for a new month, or this is all the Jewish things we've been doing. They weren't for the sake of doing the Jewish things. They were doing to get you into the moment. And that ties in with what I learned from my business of alcohol and drugs addiction and everything, that people have anxiety and depression. Depression is when you're focused on the past and there's nothing you can do about it. It's gone. So if you're going to focus on it, you're going to get yourself sick. Is what they do. Anxiety is when you're focused on the future. There's nothing you do about it because it ain't here yet. Okay, so you're going to be miserable. If you have depression and anxiety together, you're being pulled from both sides. It's a worst feeling. And so what do people do? They drink, take drugs, do terrible things in order to do what? To get them into the moment, to get the past and future to dissolve. So if you're in the moment, naturally, if you're a person just naturally in the moment, you're going to be a happy, person and be okay, whatever the moment is. But it's very hard for us to do that, okay? So a lot of Judaism is about getting you into the moment. We say a blessing before the meal, and then we say a blessing after the meal. We're putting parentheses around that moment. That's what is there. We have a new moon coming up. Oh, we have a new month coming. We have there's so many. We're counting the days to Shavuot. Every single thing is about pushing us to be in that. How many days till Shabbos? We're in Shabbos. We're coming to Shabbos. We're leaving Shabbos. It sounds like so much. It's the old joke my father used to tell him. The guy says, he says, you pray morning, noon, and night, and day. Every second you're praying. Every morning. Says, you think you're going to live longer? And the guy says, it certainly feels longer. And in a sense, it's funny, but it does make you feel it because when you have to appreciate every moment, it's a longer life. If you're wishing away, oh, I can't wait till next week or whatever. What are you waiting until next week? Be in this moment. So I think what I've gained from taking on more of Judaism is it forces me, and I don't win every time. Right. It's hard to be there all the time.
We're all works in progress.
Yeah, we're in progress. Okay, I'm not progressive, but I'm in progress. So, but we're pushed to be in that moment. Even though I have a dog, if I'm walking my dog, sometimes I'm saying, "Oh, I gotta walk through." No, it's not something I have to get over. I can't wait till you go. Let me touch this leaf. I'm not a tree hugger, but it's like, Look around. I'm driving someplace. Oh, I gotta get there. No, this is your life. I'm in the moment of my life. Let me experience that moment. And we can't always do it naturally, but I think Judaism brings us into that moment, and I think it's very, very important. So that and even the moment, like I said, with my father, I was recently with my mother when they both passed away separately.
Both the neshamas should have an aliyah.
Thank you. And it wasn't a happy moment. I don't care what you have to do. I was in the moment.
Right.
Yeah.
But even that moment, to say, gee, what more could I have done for my dad, or what am I going to do without him? No. Be in that moment. This is a moment. I'm realizing he's leaving this world. This is a special moment. Let me be in this moment. It's a sad moment, but let me be in this moment because that moment will come and go. I remember when I used to officiate at weddings, the chuppah, you have the bride and groom, and everybody's, I would stop everything. I'd whisper to him. I said, look around. Okay, just stop. I said, this is your wedding. Right. Look around. Just look around a moment. Take it in. You don't have to snap pictures. Just look around because the moment will go, but be in this moment. Don't worry about that. Oh, wait, what's going to come next? And that's what it's all about. If you can live your life in the moment, okay, then the greatest prayer really is, it's Wednesday.
Right.
Okay.
I was going to ask you also about lessons in peace, shalom bayit, peace in the home. But I mean, that translates into peace in the home as well. But anything in particular that taking on Judaism more and more taught you about relationships specifically with others, like Shalom Bayit, or with children, with parents, aside from being in the moment, which is probably first and foremost.
Shalom Bayis is, being peace in the home. The answer is for men. Okay, is you really have to just follow your wife's lead. I mean, it's just So I recently saw Jerry Seinfeld in concert. He was telling jokes, and he said, "I come to my house. There's a new couch sitting there. I don't know where it came from, how it came about." He says, "I don't ask. It's there. I don't even talk about. I don't want to know. I don't want to bring it up because it's going to lead to no. There was a Sheva Brachas for a newlywed couple this past Shabbos, and everyone was giving advice, and it really was a lot of people jokingly, "Oh, listen to the wife." But there's something about that, and I did learn that for a man, our job is to look after our wife, make sure she's happy. The stuff that I have to do on my own time. Do it on my own time. Sorry. So someone asks, "What's her job?" None of my business. None of my business. It's not a partnership in business and in marriage is not 50-50. The partner has to always do 100%. Okay? And it'll succeed. Don't worry about what the other side's doing. They'll do what they have to do and everything else. So shalom, and the word shalom, it's a weird word because in English it means peace. And the homonym is peace, P-I-E-C-E, like a piece of something. And in Hebrew, the word shalom means whole. Okay, and that's why in the Middle East they're having such problems because they're saying we want peace, and the Arab, I want a piece of this and a piece of that, and shalom means the whole thing. So the way we pay for something in Israel, shilamti, I paid. I didn't pay. I made it whole. I didn't pay, and I didn't use a credit card. I paid in a whole. So shalom bayis means that you're responsible for the whole piece there. Okay, not 50% of it. Okay, and if you think in terms of that. You can have peace, P-E-A-C-E, in the home, and it's not the job of the husband who gets married and says, well, "Honey, try to keep up with me. I'm running off to the market. I'm gonna stocks. I'm gonna my businessman." No. It's you have to look after her, take care of her. Might sound very outdated, whatever, but don't worry, she's doing stuff also. But that's your job. And the job of whatever you have to do that on your own time. And there's a chapter in the book, a very personal chapter about that in the book. I won't mention it here, but a very personal chapter in my own personal life where I came to learn that. That it's
Which
called.
Chapter is that?
It's called It occurred to me at Mayanot, something like that. I was at a Farbrengen at Mayanot, and I was away from my wife, and a rabbi was speaking and explaining how the job of your wife is not to actualize your dreams. And I was like, oh. My wife's in the States, and I'm here in Israel, starting a business. I got on a plane immediately. Right. So, and the moment I listened to she, at the time, she said, I don't want to move to Israel right now. I want to move to Florida, whatever. And the moment I listened to, as Abraham said, Sarah's wife, okay, my wife Sarah, my wife's not Sarah, but he listened to his wife Sarah, everything changed. And I have to say, the moment I did that and took on this attitude, not only did it change in the house, but it changed business-wise. It changed every which way, my whole life, and it's a very different life. But again, none of these are, we just do it once. We have to continue. That's why these mitzvahs will continue.
Look at it.
Every day we have to, put on the tefillin. Every day we have to do. Men have to put on these tefillin every day. There's a reason we put on that. We have that, and they have that. We have different tools. Okay, if an electrician and a plumber, no one's better than the other. You need them both, but they're going to have different set of tools. And they have to have them.
Yeah, we did an episode with someone who wrote a book called Not a Partnership, and it was a book on marriage and relationships. And he said precisely what you just mentioned, which I love, that marriage is not a partnership. And it's not 50-50 or 80-20. And sometimes you have to do a little more, sometimes you do a little less, but essentially we're both giving 100%. And that's how it's done. Just to put the responsibility also on the woman, and I love what you said, of course, because we appreciate that. But at the same time, we both give our 100%.
By the way, I once told this late night to a shaliach, a rabbi, and I told him about the whole story, and he said the next morning he came to me and said, it was incredible. I was thinking about it all night. I just don't know if I should share this with my wife.
Yeah. We shared it on the podcast. That's it. It's out there.
So, yeah.
But you did say everything changed after that, so.
No, it is true. It's a more peaceful life. It's not the way the world is today. Today, a lot of couples get married and they each have their own thing, and you don't wonder why there's this big conflict. They don't understand what a partnership is, even in a business partnership. Even in, I'll use a great example, these bands, famous rock bands that break up, okay? Because it wasn't about who is doing more, who's doing less. Well, I wrote the songs, but you did this, but I did that, but you wrote, you're just a drummer. No, it's each person has to do 100% of their job. 100% of their job may not always be 100% of the whole project, but you just give 100%. Don't worry about, there's only 4 people in the band, so I should do 25%. That band's going nowhere, and that's the same kind. All businesses are like that. Partnerships, have to be that way.
Well, you gave good advice about your partnership with your wife. I was very inspired to read that your children have followed in your footsteps. Like they became Chabad.
I could have, maybe I followed somewhat in their footsteps. Okay,
yeah, well,
it really is a partnership.
When she told you,
are my children?
Right.
Baruch Hashem,
So
thank God.
What made them decide to become Chabad?
Well,
Hasidim?
we got involved, going to the Chabad house and Rabbi Grossbaum, and then my son went for a year in Israel not to a Chabad yeshiva at first, and then he went to Mayanot, and then he went to Morristown, and then went to Oila Torah, and then he got smicha from Chabad, I think, maybe they were inside the conservative synagogues for so long. I know a lot of conservative rabbis whose children became more from. And there's the lacking of authenticity that took place. And it's I'm not angry at putting down. I think I get it. When these movements started, they're trying to invent ways of getting people after the Holocaust back into things. And of course, being more liberal and throwing away things always seems like the answer. But in the long run, it's not. We have traffic rules. We keep throwing away the rules. There's going to be accidents out there, and that I think my kids realized that, and they were attached to it, and they loved being, they loved the Rebbe, and they loved the Shluchim, and why not? I mean, it's beautiful, and so they were that way. The example I give, by the way, with the mitzvahs is I say, I don't know much about sports, but if a guy gets up there and hits the baseball and hits the ball and it goes flying in the air and it goes very far and very high, and really it's a beautiful hit and it's amazing, but then it lands, a fraction of an inch over that little white powdered line, and they say foul or out or whatever, and I'm like, give it to him. Let him have it. It's the World Series. Let him have it. He did such a nice job. It went high and far. They go, no. Doesn't matter how high and far. The rule, the halacha, the law in baseball is if it goes over even a fraction, it's out. And if we gave it to him, if we broke that rule, there'd be no fun in the game. If you light Shabbos candles Thursday night, or if you light it at the wrong time, or if you don't do certain things, the game is no longer fun. It's that we're actually, Judaism are laws. It doesn't sound as warm, but laws are what make every game fun, okay, to follow the laws.
Great analogy.
Yeah.
We could go on and on with you. That's the truth. But we really appreciate your time and you being with us today. And looking back at the many things you've learned in your life's journey, or even something about, let me just think. If you want to share with us a favorite quote, we always end with a parting message, a favorite quote, something you would put on a billboard to share with all of us. What would that be?
Well, maybe 2 things come to mind. I always say one thing.
2 things is good.
Speakers always say, before I speak, I'd like to say a few words.
Right.
So one is certainly a quote of the Rebbe, which is "Kera Welt Heint," turn the world upside down. And I always wondered, he's such a peaceful Rebbe, turn the world upside down. Sounds like an activist, a rallying cry. If we turn, and he was a literal man. He wasn't a poet. If you said turn the world upside down, he meant, this table should be upside down and everything be upside down. What's he mean, turn the world upside down? And he said, Heint, today, Kera Welt Heint, turn it upside down today. And the more I've come to hear that and the more I see what our world is, we're living in such an upside down world, a false world, that I think when the Rebbe said turn the world upside down, he meant it, because then it'll be right side up. And I think it's strong. And the second part of the Rebbe that really went to his very, very soul is Achdus, is that we should be one. Jewish people should be, all people should be one, but the Jewish people that was his job. And it really, I think it hurt him tremendously when the Jews weren't together. And he really, really wanted all Jews to be together and to be one. And we spent so much time separating each other when we should be one. And with that, I will conclude with a little poem. How's that?
I would love that.
From my other book called David's Harp.
I also want to know if you have a favorite book. I forgot to ask you that. I was just curious to know if you have because you've written books, and
Well, I love Mendy Kalmanson's books. I was at his home once he was writing Wisdom.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those books. I like some inspirational
Seeds of Wisdom.
Seeds of Wisdom. I was there when he was writing it, and I always found it fascinating that I saw him, the process of writing it, and then I saw it published. I was like, wow. So that was it.
positivity bias also.
Yeah, positive. He wrote that also,
was
and
good.
also my daughter-in-law wrote Parsha poems.
Wow.
Chana Nesenoff wrote, and it's every week a different poem
I think
for
I saw
Shabbos.
that, actually,
Parsha
yeah.
poems. It's fabulous. To sit around the Shabbos
that.
table and
And you read the
and
poem?
you just read the poem.
And she gets it from her father.
And she got it from the Rebbe. It's all Rebbe things. I helped edit it
Yeah, I
a
have
little,
that. I actually have that
but
book.
she wrote Parsha poems.
I meant the talent of writing.
Oh
a
no,
poem.
but this I'm a father-in-law, so you know.
Right.
So,
Oh, you're
so-
father-in-law.
it's
Yeah,
my
but,
daughter-in-law.
you know,
It's my daughter-in-law, but I'll take credit for anything. Trust me. But she it's a beautiful book also. Just a beautiful book for Shabbos, hardcover with beautiful pictures. So Parsha poems is really I really think that goes along. Concerning the Rebbe and Achdus, I'll there's a very short poem which I think sums it up for Jews, and all Jews should hear this, especially what's going on in the world today. It's called Name Calling. The liberals call them conservatives, and the hardliners call them leftists. The freethinkers call them closed-minded, and the open-minded call them reconstructionists. The traditionalists call them renewal, and the orthodox call them chiloni. The secularists call them right-wing, and the reform call them haredi. The observant call them apikoris, and the modern call them black hat. The non-observant call them religious nuts, and the siruga call them ultra this and ultra that. The kibbutzniks call them Hasidim, and the settlers call them Masorati. The progressives call them Zionists, and the conservatives call them Dati. The religious call them Baal Tshuva, and the zealots call them True. The Shomer Shabbos call them Machalel, and the anti-Semites just call them Jew.
Wow.
Achdus. We're all Jews. Let's get together, Jews.
And Gimmel Tammuz is approaching. That's the Rebbe's
Sure.
yahrzeit, the day of his passing. And he was, like you say, he was a leader who brought Jews together. And he was also a leader who didn't create followers, who created leaders. And you never met the Rebbe, but he created a leader in you. And thank you for leading the way and visiting all these places and showing us what you've learned.
And thank you. The Rebbe did something that people, at the time when he spoke, when it wasn't Shabbos, there was a camera. There was always cameras and microphones. And people didn't do that back then. People, especially religious Jews, that was something you didn't touch. So here's this man coming out of the Holocaust, coming out of a different world, Eastern Europe, and he puts this camera and this microphone. And today we have all of these messages from him. And it not only from that, it was his sign of encouraging, continue. When the cameras get better, use better cameras, better microphones, keep going. And so sitting here, the audience doesn't see. This room is filled with cameras. We got microphones. There's
And
people.
we have a great cameraman too.
Okay, we got cameraman. You got
guy.
so this is very much a part of what the Rebbe was, asking for. Continue doing this, and one day when there's other things, we'll do that. But this is he would be podcasting today, no doubt. And he did it in a time when nobody was doing it. Some people might have thought it was too modern or whatever. This is what it's for.
Right.
There's a lot of podcasts for other things, but this is really what the podcast was made for. This generation. I say that about Shabbos a lot of times. That people say, "Oh, Shabbos is olden times, not for today." And I said the opposite. In olden times, every day was Shabbos. there were no cars, there were no phones. Right? The Jews kept the Shabbos all these years just for 2024 so that we could turn off those phones and those televisions and those cars. Okay, we have to go with the modern times also.
And it's such a blessing.
And it's a blessing that we turn it off, but it's also a blessing that when we know to use it, to turn it on, to have a podcast. So
Yes.
thank you
Great.
also.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's the truth, that the Rebbe encouraged this, to use everything of today in a positive way. And so we feel blessed, and we feel the Rebbe's blessing in our podcast to be able to share your message.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. Good luck to you.
Thank
Hatzlacha.
you.
Thank you.